Today is going to be another fun ride. Today we are going to do a build inside of the FSP CMT212A, the tempered glass on the side but no choking hazard in the front version of this case, the only version that I would get, because having glass obstructing the front fans, just no, don't do that, bad idea. The only inlet you would have would be like the little slots on the side here, and that's just not enough for anything. But at the same time I wanted to explore an extreme budget build, like the type of build you would put together if, for example, you would run into a delivery guy and knock him over and then steal one of those puppies here. AMD RX 7950 XTX. Now, those cars are basically unobtainable, but we will go with the retail price of any other XTX card, the 7900 XTX card. So, yeah, the idea behind today's video is going to be all in on the Team Red GPU and then as the absolute minimum on everything else. Basically, you go into the first hardware store and then you just take whatever they have, as long as the price tag is low enough. Therefore, we are going to use a Intel 12600. Sorry, no, Intel i5 12500, because it's even less expensive. And to maximize our zero effort on this one, we are also going to use the stock Intel cooler. So for myself, I'm going to install a stock Intel cooler for the first time in a decade or so. It's been a very long time since I've done that, and even this one, I have unboxed it back then when we got the chip, but I have never used it. This is one hell of a disappointment. It was back then and it is still now, but it's going to be enough to cool a 12500 down. Not K, I want to say K, but no, there's no K in here. So that's going to be fine. For the rest of the build, we are going to go with an ASRock B660 Steel Legend because it's a DDR4 motherboard and because it's not expensive at all. Then the mandatory 970 EVO Plus, and because apparently those here are not as expensive as I thought, two 16 gig G.Skill Trident Z RGB 3200, and apparently they cost like $100, which surprised me. The only part where I needed to fiddle a bit is with the power supply, because the idea here is as budget as possible except for GPU power, but I wanted to use the FSP Hydro PTM Pro. A, because it's freaking giant and it looks awesome, and B, because it's an FSP case. So let's just pretend that this is not the 1200 watts version, but like the 1850, I think, version, which costs like 80 or something. I did the calculations beforehand, and pretending that this is the 800 watt version of this and that this is a Sapphire RX 7900 XTX, whatever they are called, we would end up at around 2100 euros, which is not budget at all, but I mean, this is how things are nowadays. I mean, the GPU alone is almost 1400 bucks, so that's just where we stand. But still, the idea is all in, Team Red, and then minimum on everything else. And the only reason we can really do this is because the fan comes pre-equipped with 4 fans, 3 intake, 1 exhaust, so no need to do anything there. The 12500 comes with the cooler, so the real minimum on basically everything. Oh, I hate non-catching screws. Why have they not disappeared? So let's put this puppy together and find out if, while gaming at 4K, the GPU is the bottleneck or the 12500. I sincerely hope it's the 12500, otherwise it would be kind of weird, but yeah, let's get to this. One thing I didn't realize until this week actually, where we did one budget case after the other one, is how freakishly often budget cases do not come with every ATX standoff pre-attached. You get a freaking bag with your standoffs, like it was in the time, right? But I really thought that this was just common now to pre-mount every at least ATX one, but apparently no. It's just cases that cost above like 80 bucks that do it all the time, and once you get into the budget category, they just stop doing that, which is annoying as hell, and I don't get it. Just pre-mount those suckers. I never realized that ASRock included like a PCB type of material as like a keychain, and it has like Steel Legend, it has a Steel Legend motherboard in the front. How cool is that? But I'm not here for real coolness, I'm here for that M.2 screw. Yeah, that's another one of those budget things. Why is this screw not pre-attached? It just takes time and an additional bag and somebody who puts the screw into the bag and somebody who puts the bag into the box. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, another thing I hate about those LGA 1700 sockets, like if I pull it down, I will break this off before I reach the bottom. If I remember correctly, like on Intel LGA 1200, that wasn't the case. It was like mounted to the retention bracket until I pulled that lever down, and I don't know, it feels different. Okay, so this is one of those original Intel stock coolers, which is 80% plastic, and I already hate it. It still has the original thermal paste on it, which is exactly what I wanted, because I'm not going to invest any money in thermal paste for this build, because that's not the point of the build. Oh my god, do I really need to... What a horrible method of mounting. Is this mounted now? No, I need to press these in a little bit more. Mounting this piece of crap down is harder than mounting anything else down.
A few moments later.
How the fuck do you mount this down?
One eternity later.
Seems like every one of those, how should I call it, like pieces of plastic is going through the other side and being expanded. So I guess it's installed now? Whoa, does this feel cheap. But hey, no extra mounting, and the cable is so nicely placed that there is basically zero cable standing out. Look at this beautiful piece of budget. Which is funny because everything on the table is not as expensive as the GPU alone. Ah, the times we live in. So let's first try to find a bunch of ATX. I need to find the right ones. The nice part about building a build like this is that there is not a lot to build. Also cable-wise and everything else, it's a very quick thing because there is essentially nothing to put in. Even the cooler was a thing of 5 minutes. I should start speed building and just seeing how quickly I can get over time. If I were to do a speed build, the motherboard would get a single screw. And if I could do, I would use Velcro. Just like Velcro tie it to the case. I don't care. Ta-da! How easy was that? And how quick was that? So, last point is... or the second last point, the power supply. And I believe that I have the exact amount of cables that I need. Wow, that's awesome. And the case is so freaking empty. I love this. First, I will just connect the HD audio to not create the problem later on, because that one is always in that most inconvenient possible location down here. And oh, I forgot a screw. Oh no, I forgot a screw. Apparently I was speed building. But let's be honest, considering how heavy the cooler is, like I could also be using just a single screw. Beautiful. How easy is all of that? In such an empty case, it is so easy to build. And all of the fans are nicely pre-connected using an absurd amount of voltage controlled splitters, which although that kinda annoys me, but I can connect everything to a single header. And I am done with the 4 fans. Yeah, I have a dual 8-pin still connected for the CPU, and I can guarantee you, no matter what motherboard, that 12500 will never be using that second connector, no matter how hard you would push it. Now, all jokes aside about this being the budgetiest build possible, it will be an amazing gaming PC, that's for sure, and way better than any like 2000 euro pre-build that you could get here in this country. However, the case is actually really interesting considering the price point. It's like an Acer Celesta 340, but on crack. Like, it doesn't have a few little holes in the front that allow air to pass through. No, this is just air. And although you will lose a lot of it due to that sheet in the front, because the front is pure RGB. It has like a white sheet that reflects light, and although it might look very interesting, or you know, if you're into the whole RGB thing, it might be exactly what you want. However, it does come at the cost of a lot of performance. Inside the Celesta, it was some performance, not the world, right, but still some. However, considering the amount of air we need now in this system, it's still going to be plenty. Plus, we have 3 fans everywhere, which... great. Okay, let's do the last part, and then we can have a look at this budgety AF build that we put together today. Okay, system ready in what? Probably somewhere around 15 minutes. Minus introduction and here and there and saying hi. This was a solid 15 minutes build. Amazing. Now, let's start it up and hope that I don't get an aneurysm thanks to all of that ARGB. The stroke. I feel the stroke coming. Let's go RGB. Well, it's a PC. It's not the best PC we ever built, not for a long shot, but it's working. It's actually quite interesting how this thing performs, so let's get to the numbers quickly. First off, the cooler is garbage. It is utter garbage. With the glass closed and then running Firmark at 4K 8x MSIA and adding to that the CPU burner of Firmark, the CPU ended up at 88 degrees C. I'm pretty sure a Nokia NHD15 heatsink could do that. That's pretty garbage. For the GPU, sitting at 70 on the board and 90 junction, so also a bit on the hotter side. But on the other hand, I really have to say, like, the top blower cooler never like really worked that well. The heat is going to build up everywhere. It's not the best approach. But still, during gaming we were seeing CPU temperatures in the mid 80s, beginning 80s, GPU in the mid 60s, so it's still very much alright, though the cooler is a bit on the louder side. It's not an Octa cooler, it's not an Arctic cooler, it is a stock Intel garbage cooler. It still deserves that name, and I'm really pissed that they decided to just throw a bunch of plastic on that thing instead of just making it out of aluminum. It's a piece of trash. Anyway, the gaming numbers are also quite interesting to me because it showed me that we are still GPU bound. We ran everything at 4K, and I will show you the numbers in a second, but Metro was 24 on the CPU, Shadow of the Tomb Raider was 50, Cyberpunk was 38, everything in 4K except for Cyberpunk, it had the non-RT settings. Everything else had just had the highest settings. Also quite interesting is the fact that Far Cry needed like a solid 10 minutes to start. Like, you have that image that just says something like PSO cache warm up, something like that, and then there's a number that counts down. It took 10 freaking minutes. Absolutely unnormal. It's the first time I encountered that long of a starting time. Really weird. But also Far Cry at 45% on the CPU, so you can still take like a entry-level last-gen CPU, pair it with the newest and beefiest GPU, and then you are fine. So this is still a perfectly abled 4K gaming machine. I wouldn't do that. You don't need to, you know, game at 4K, but 1440p, you will be in the hundreds of FPS, no problem, and you will have a great time. But here are also the numbers. So, temperature-wise, the case does a pretty good job. Like, if you put your hand in the bag, there is a lot of hot air going out, really a lot, but the cooler is just constant. It is a garbage cooler, but the case is fine. The RGB effect in the front looks very nice, I have to say that. Maybe a bit restrictive because of that sheet that's inside, but other than that, the case is amazing considering the price point. It is a get-go case, a bit like the Montech Extreme Mesh or a bunch of Intertech cases. Like, you have those cases that just, you get it, it's budget friendly, you get it, you throw it in, you are done, just like we did today. It works fine, so I'm happy with the case. It has a positive review, which we will film in like an hour, but the review is very positive. For this PC, this works, actually. I think this works very, very fine, and this would be somewhat what I would do like in my younger age, where I didn't have the budget to get like a good mainboard or a better mainboard, better case, better fans. So, you know, everything is optional except for the GPU. But yeah, that's what budget looks like. But okay, what do you think about this PC? It's a weird-ass thing, of course it is. Like, the GPU looks so off in here. It's a giant thing, and then there's a freaking Intel stock cooler. It's so weird, but I kinda like it. The cable management is easy. There is not much going on, so there is not a lot of cable, so it looks clean, at least that. Except for the part in the top where you can see the cables dangling down, that just looks a bit off, but that's budget case related. But okay, what do you think about it? Should I have done something differently? Of course, yeah, better CPU, better RAM, better fans, better cooler, the list goes on and on and on. But it's perfectly capable of running high-end games at 1440p, so it does serve its purpose pretty well. But okay, this should be it for today, but if you want to continue watching, have a look at this build, which is also a very nice build. But for today, this was it. Thank you for watching and hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.